to the board meeting of the Syracuse Local Development Corporation. We will take a few minutes and review the year-end financials. We'll start with calling the meeting to order and a roll call of the board members. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Ricky Brown.
Ken Kinsey.
Stevie Thompson.
I'm not a member, correct?
No, you are a member of the board.
Oh, Dirk Sonneborn.
Just not the audit committee. Sorry, he canceled.
Dirk Sonneborn.
Sorry. We all got I'll just go off for a second. We all got a meeting notice this morning from Dirk Sonneborn canceling the meeting this morning at like 6:30 this morning. So
Rick,
we were
Rick,
all
do you
like,
want to spell my name correctly when
what?
you put that in the paper?
But it was the Google machine at work. Proof of notice was properly served. We'll start with the minutes of our last board meeting on December 13th, which were included in our packets. Is there any motion to change comments, any corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Second, Ken. Final call. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. The next item is a audit. I will correct that agenda. An audit committee report for the SLDC, which was held on March 16th to review the year-end financials for the SLDC. The board reviewed them with our representatives from Grossman St. Moore. They were approved for recommendation to the full board of directors at this meeting. Next item on the agenda for new business is the review of our year-end financial statements with a motion to approve them as submitted. We'll ask Mike Lasan and Brian, are you coming up? Got to learn the tricks of the trade, Brian.
So we'll keep this pretty short and sweet.
From Grossman St. Moore, thanks.
I'm Mike Lasan from Grossman St. Moore. Brian Zarnicki from Grossman St. Moore. He's one of the staff who works with me closely on all the audits of the city entities, so SLDC, SIDA, and SEDCO. So just want to say the audit went extremely well, as we discussed at the audit committee last week. The presentations in your packages on the left-hand side, the hard copy for SLDC. I was going to highlight a couple big things that happened during the course of the year. On slide number 3, as you recall, the only financing fees you would get through SLDC are related to bonding activity. So basically what this discloses is $50 million of bonds outstanding that passed through SLDC years ago, as there was no new financing fees in the current year, so no new revenues. End of the day, basically, you spend a few dollars on some legal and some accounting type fees. So if you go all the way to slide number 7, as we discussed in the audit committee, you're sitting at $15,742 of cash. That's basically just sitting there. And the goal is ultimately for SLDC is to try to find a way for us not to require having audits. So you don't have to spend money since the limited activity has kind of waned away over the years. So, but the audit went well. Basically, it's cash. A few transactions. We looked at a whole whopping 4 transactions, so it went extremely well. Nothing to report. Clean audit. Good. All right. Jackie was great to work with, as Brian learned over the last couple of weeks. So.
Good to hear.
Great.
Great. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the year-end financials for the Syracuse Local Development Corporation as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ricky, second Ken. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Syracuse Local Development Corporation?
So moved.
Made by Dirk. Thank you.
Second.
Second Ricky. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brian.
Check this. You have to wait till 8:10.
I have to wait till 8:10. Everybody take a break till 8:10. Thank you, Mike.
Morning.
I would like to call to order a meeting of the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency. We'll start with a roll call of the Board of Directors. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Ricky Brown.
Ken Kinsey.
Dirk Sonneborn.
Steve Thompson.
Thank you. Everyone's present. Proof of notice was properly served. I can't even talk this morning. First item on our agenda is a public hearing. Notice was provided for a public hearing for what is known as the TLSP Coda LLC project in the city of Syracuse. And I don't know who's going to read. Eric?
This morning.
Eric is going to read, but before we start the hearing, I would just ask if everyone in the audience could make sure they signed in. We need to keep track for the public hearing, so if you haven't, please do. On
There
the
is a
sign-in
sign-in sheet at the back table.
Yes, thank you.
Please sign in, and we will have anyone who wishes to speak following the reading of the notice is more than welcome to speak. Eric, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. TLSP Coda LLC, or an entity to be formed, the company, requested the agency undertake a project consisting of the acquisition of an interest in approximately 1.97 acres of real property located at 1014-16 East Fayette Street, 1027-29 East Genesee Street, 1001-19 East Genesee Street and Krause Avenue, 313-23 South Krause Avenue, 309 South Krause Avenue, and 301-07 South Krause Avenue. All in the city of Syracuse, such parcels to be re-subdivided collectively the land and the demolition of the existing structures with the exception of a Ward Wellington Ward home, including renovation of the exterior facade to historical standards and to the interior, converting this into a retail space, and the construction of approximately 149,000 square feet, a 6-story residential apartment building containing approximately 282 residential units, consisting of approximately 103 studio units, 98 one-bedroom units, and 69 two-bedroom units, and 12 three-bedroom units, to be located on a portion of the first floor and floors 2 through 6, a variety of amenities on the first floor, including a lounge, a study, fitness area, and a public retail space, and a few smaller common spaces on each floor for residents and work from home and lounge areas, and an exterior courtyard space at the center of the building, which will include a year-round heated pool, dining patio, as well as subsurface parking for approximately 146 spaces in the form of a parking garage, and a surface parking lot of approximately 29 spaces. All of this located on the land, the facility, the acquisition and the installation in and on the land, and facility of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The granting of certain financial assistance in the form of exemptions of real estate taxes, state and local taxes, and use tax and mortgage recording tax, in accordance with Section 874 of the General Municipal Law. Collectively, the financial assistance, the appointment of the company or its designee as an agent of the agency in connection with the acquisition, the renovation, construction, equipping, and completion of the project facility, and the lease of the land and the facility by the agency pursuant to a lease agreement, and the acquisition of an interest in the equipment pursuant to a bill of sale from the company to the agency, and the sublease of the project facility back to the company pursuant to the sublease agreement. The company will be the initial owner or operator of the project facility. That concludes
The reading.
the reading of the notice.
The reading. Thank you very much, Eric. I would ask, I believe that there have been written comments submitted on this particular application.
Yes.
I believe there are 4 letters of support that were submitted to support the application. Just for the record, we'll include them as part of the record today. Great, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this project, please step forward, state your name and address, and your comments.
Good morning, James Trasher from CHA. We are the project engineer for the CODA project that was better described than I would have in terms of the legal notice and description out there. Wendy Luna was with me from Costello, Cooney, and Furon, and I'm doing the talking today because she can't speak. She has laryngitis. So we're here to see.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So, as you know, we're here to see a pilot mortgage recording tax, sales tax abatement for the proposed project. We seek these benefits just because of what's going on in the world today with labor costs, inflation, and those things from where the project initially started with the approval process, a year and a half plus or minus ago. We've received all the approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission, and most recently we got sign off from SHPO in relation to the Ward Wellington Ward House and the former Ronald McDonald House. Demolition has started to get the site pad ready for construction upon approval from this agency. Without the approval of the agency, the project may go to a standstill just because equity partners and lenders are looking for those benefits to make this project get over the financial needs that it needs to move forward. So we appreciate your consideration, and if you have any questions during the public hearing, we're willing to answer.
Thank you, Jim. Questions? No questions?
Not at this time, but maybe.
Maybe later. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this project, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Good morning, Aggie.
I'm not speaking in opposition to the project. I don't know enough about it.
Name and address, I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm Aggie Lane. And
for a while.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time, hasn't it? 340 Midland Ave.
Thank you.
But I'm on the board of Urban Jobs Task Force, and I'm actually here to commend the board. And this is one of the biggest projects that's going to need to 10% Syracuse labor. And I just want to point out that there is a city initiative that's now under CNY Works called Syracuse Build. They have a software that is like a hiring hall, and if you ever need to find that 10% labor, I would connect with Chris Montgomery at Syracuse Build. And then the 10% on the MWBE. That's just really commendable. Looking forward to when we get some residential, more affordable requirements, as I'm hearing July 1st. You've held that part off. And we just think there need to be, besides pilots, community benefits that benefit the little person in the city. So anyway, we're glad we're moving towards that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Aggie. I just want to say I appreciate you coming. I'm sure the board does too, and making the comments. We are working together to try to improve everything that we do, and it certainly is with the help and assistance of you and others in our community. And we're very grateful for that input. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding the project, positive or negative? I have one question, Jim, if you don't mind. How, in our climate, we're going to have a year-round pool?
How? Well, this is the way it goes in the modern, so everyone says year-round, but when you get into operational things, there's certain times of the year where management will decide to say
4 feet of snow is a problem.
Exactly. People are always ambitious, you know, the developer, you know, is from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, so, you know, out there, they see the ability to hang out in a warm tub, you know, during the winter time, so, you know, I think he's trying to bring that here to have an added amenity, but, you know, as time goes, amenities change based on operational things.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
Eric, can you identify or give us the nature of the 4 letters in support of the comments we received from?
Sure. So we can make sure the board receives copies of those. We know that the East Genesee Region Association was one, and Dave Mankiewicz submitted a letter of support. Well, I think it was the executive of their board. What we'll do, Dirk, is we'll make sure we share and provide those letters of support for the board for their awareness. But all of that has been included in the project file for the record.
Thanks.
There's one from Center State, too, right?
Last call, hearing is closed. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. I apologize.
Sorry. My name is Richard Kornbluth. I live on Fellows Ave in Syracuse. And this is actually a question for the developer, which is, I don't know enough about the project to know the details, but I'm curious to what extent the project is consistent with meeting New York's CLCPA and climate goals in terms of decarbonization.
Thank you.
I'll turn that over to our architect here, Mike O'Shea, because, you know, I'm not into energy code stuff. I'm into stormwater, sanitary sewer. So, Mr. O'Shea.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Michael O'Shea, QPK Design, 450 South Salina Street, Syracuse, New York.
Thank you.
We're aware of those regulations. What we're doing is designing a facility that is respectful of the environment. And that's in the materials that we choose and the units that we use for energy and air conditioning. So although we're not designing to high-level LEED certifications, the project is sustainable and being environmentally responsible.
Thank you.
Just quick question, is that compliant in terms of
honestly, I haven't. I'm not aware of the specification that he articulated. I will look it up, but in the industry, it's normal to, and I'm sure you've heard of LEED certification, classification, gold, sustainable. So those are the guidelines that we use, as well as often looked at executive orders from the governor's office.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, the hearing is closed. Next item on our agenda are the minutes from our last Board of Directors meeting, February 22nd, which were included in the packet. Are there any comments, changes? You can leave all those, Jim.
Okay.
Thanks. Because we're going to get back to you. Any other comments, questions, corrections on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion?
Thank you, Ricky. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a committee report of the Finance Committee, which was held March 16th. At that meeting, the Finance Committee reviewed the year-end financials as presented by Grossman St. Moore for the IDA and approved those financials for positive recommendation to this board. The committee also reviewed the application and financials for the TLSP Coda LLC project. There was discussion, and upon discussion, that project was recommended for approval to this board. Next item on the agenda. Did I forget anything? I don't think so. For new business is a presentation for consideration by this board of the year-end financials for the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency. I invite Mike Lasson and Brian from Grossman St. Moore to come up and present their recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks for having us again.
It's been a long time, Mike.
you know, just, as you know, Michael's not at Grossman St. Amour. Brian Zarnecki's next to me. He works, you know, closely with me on the audit for SIDA. You know, as I said to the audit committee and the finance committee meeting last week, audit went extremely well. No issues or concerns, no control issues to report. What I'll do is just highlight some of the stuff in the presentation, some big picture stuff that we discussed. Just, you know, just slide number 3 real quick. We talked about this last week. You have about $546 million of conduit debt outstanding. Majority of that is with the Syracuse City School District and with Destiny's Malls. So as you know, the conduit debt passes through SIDA. It's not obligations of SIDA, but your name's on it. So and we also talked about commitments, agreements, and contracts. There's about $1.5 million, you know, which is like futuristic to be spent. So that's disclosed so that people realize there's going to be about $1.5 million you already committed for contracts in place as of 12/31/22. So on your face of your financial statements, you don't see that as a liability until they meet the requirements. It doesn't become a liability to SIDA. So, in the past, also, you remember there was a BETA grant from 1998, 1999. You know, that grant basically, from a standpoint from HUD, basically became, you know, no longer existent from about 2012-ish or so future. So basically what happened is this past year we reversed out the liability about $735,000 as the program's been closed out and there's no further, you know, audit from HUD could come. So basically that gets recognized as revenue in the financial statements of SIDA this year, but doesn't really provide you cash. It was just sitting there as a long-term liability. As you know, down the street, we're also working on the Peachtree pollution remediation. That's off the highway there. You can see all the bulldozers working on that. You still have a commitment. SIDA was actually committed to sponsor about 10% of the cleanup costs. I think there was an estimate by the DEC about $2.1 million. So you represent about 10% of that. There's about $149,000 per se remaining that could be a cost to SIDA in the future. That's part of your long-term commitments too. That was pretty much slide 3, some of the biggest highlights for the current year. What I'll do is jump to the statement of net position, which is also your balance sheet. We discussed, this is on slide number 6. You can see you're sitting on about $3.6 million of cash, but remember, I said there's about $1.6 million of commitments, $1.5 million, for, contracts, and then for the DEC cleanup. So, so that's not all necessarily spendable, but, you already committed some of those dollars. But your balance sheet's pretty clean, not a lot of activity there. The biggest item on there that's not cash is other assets, which is like investment in properties that you have on the books that you've had for a number of years. I know over the years you've been selling off some of those properties. That's what that $500,000 represents. So we'll jump to the income statement per se at slide 7. We talked about this a little bit, but slide number 8 goes through all the details. Your financing fees for the past year are about $431,000. That's made up 90% from 3 different projects: Symphony Tower, Jamal's, and JMA Tech Properties. So those are fees you collect, as they run projects through you. So that's $431,000. Professional fees of $560,000 this past year. There's salary and benefits that get passed along from the city of Syracuse, about $142,000. The next largest one is the downtown committee, what they call NDC and NDC of $82,000. So basically those are contracts you've had in place in the past, historically with SIDA, and you've kind of been renewing them. So those are the majority of your professional fees out the door this past year. Out of public improvements, you helped offset some infrastructure project with JMA Wireless. They spent, your commitment was about $230,000, so that offset some of the costs they spent on infrastructure that becomes part of the city of Syracuse, ultimately, water and sewer and everything else they worked on down there. So, and then you have consulting fees for $63,000 for McCormick, Barron, Salzar. Basically, from a profit and loss, you had a net increase in net position of $257,000. That goes to your overall net position of $4.1 million. But to recall, some of that's committed to future use, and most of that net position is on cash. Other than that, we have an investment report that was clean. We have an internal control report that's clean. All that has to get submitted to Paris by the end of the month. So we'll work with Jackie, Eric, and the team to make sure all this material is submitted properly to the ABO, the public authority reporting system there. That's all we really had.
Great, thank
So is
you.
Ricky going to take it to Paris when he goes to Paris?
This is
The state reporting,
the state reporting is not this is fun.
not as much fun as the Ricky's
Don't need any
vacation.
French, you know. So,
Thank you, Mike. Brian, questions? Is there a motion to approve the financials as presented for year-end 2022? Thank you, Ricky. Second. Second. Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you both very much. Have a great rest of the day. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the resolutions authorizing the TLSP Coda LLC project. Sue.
Good morning, everyone. So the first resolution in your agenda with respect to this project is the inducement resolution. We just got through holding the public hearing, but to recap, this is the project up on Genesee Street that will preserve the Ward Wellington Ward home, but demolish the additional structures that appear on the various properties for the construction of an approximately 300,000 square foot, 6-story residential apartment complex with related amenities and associated parking. The parking will include an underground 146 space garage and an approximately 29 spot surface lot. The project is requesting various exemptions from this agency in the form of state and local sales and use tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption, and real property tax exemptions. They are also seeking a temporary sales tax appointment so that we could enter into certain agreements with them prior to closing on the full set of lease documents so that they don't lose out on placing orders in order to take advantage of the construction season if the board were to permit the incentives to go forward. Currently, they are seeking state and local sales and use tax in an amount not to exceed $3,840,000 and a mortgage recording tax in the approximate amount of $532,500. The City Planning Commission, as you heard in the public hearing, they have obtained all necessary approvals from the city, including the Planning Commission, the BZA, and they have gotten their historic SHPO authorization as well with respect to Ward Wellington Ward Home. As part of the process for the City Planning Commission, they did undertake a coordinated seeker review. They notified the agency of their intent to act as lead agency. The SIDA signed off on that, and so the City Planning Commission did in fact undertake a full seeker review and issued a negative declaration. So you will not see a separate seeker resolution in your agenda today because we are bound to their finding based on the coordinated review. So what the resolution is seeking to do is to authorize the undertaking of this project. It is seeking to authorize the execution and delivery of the agency agreement, which is your standard agreement with the developer. The agreement would need to be returned within 14 business days. It authorizes the appointment of the company as your agent for purposes of undertaking and completing the project. It authorizes, should you agree to the temporary appointment of the company as your agent, as a condition precedent to that, they would be obligated to enter into certain interim temporary documents with the agency and to pay 1/4% of your administrative fee and your legal fees, which is your standard operating procedure when you authorize a temporary appointment. The temporary appointment would be good through June 30th of this year. They would need to close on the full lease transaction prior to that date. And I think that that is it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And obviously there are representatives from the developer here for any questions related to this project.
Questions, comments?
At the Finance Committee, it was clarified that the pilot exemption does not exempt from the current taxes that are being paid on the properties. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
So we'll continue to, the city will continue to receive those taxes.
Absolutely.
I just want to say a couple of things prior to a motion. As it was pointed out in the public hearing, this is the IDA's first project to fall into compliance with our new policy, specifically local hire for City of Syracuse residents on the construction fees and an improved and larger MWBE participation policy. We had some discussion at the Finance Committee meeting regarding exactly how that reporting and compliance, what it will look like. And the first item that I want to stress is the board, I believe, indicated that they would like to see the data from this project themselves. Since this is our first, we're hoping it's wildly successful, obviously. I promised at the Finance Committee meeting that I would start researching and do a deeper dive into exactly how we want to do the compliance, or what it's going to look like for the applicant and for us. I have started that. I'm not complete with that, but we'll get that to everybody within the next couple of weeks. I would ask the applicant to possibly indulge us, since this is our first. We may standardize our compliance, which makes it easier for everybody, and also is usually what the state requires us to do. So we would talk maybe about a quarterly report or something similar to that to give all of our applicants. This one, we may jump in a little early and say, could you give us something the first 3 months, just to see how it works, if it works. If you're okay, we're okay. So I would ask for that indulgence. I realize I can't ask for it legally. The lawyer will go crazy if I do that. But I would ask for it as an indulgence to the chair and to the board, because, again, the whole idea is for success here. It's not, we want to do this with all of our projects and be wildly successful. That's number one. I also think, to a couple of the board members who were in this discussion with me last week, we do have to take a look at the difference between new construction and renovation. And in particular, new construction may require the board to act far more quickly as a partner or an investor in the project in order to capture all of the project at an early time. We will continue that conversation, and again, that's more internal to our compliance, how we want to see the compliance roll out for us. But I didn't want to not mention all of the things that we discussed.
May I add one thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So unlike a project where a temporary appointment is not being requested, as soon as any benefits are conferred by an agency to a project, all compliance is mandated. So starting with the second you get that temporary appointment, every single policy of the agency is in effect and would be binding upon the applicant.
Great.
So I just want to point that out.
Great. I'm assuming that's not a problem for the applicant. And the last thing I want to remind everyone is that if the IDA undertakes a partnership or investment in this project in any way for benefits, the applicant and owner is forbidden from selling the project without the IDA's participation. So, any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none. Sorry, Ricky.
Sorry. Just add a brief comment, and I know you're likely familiar with this process. Kathy perfectly articulated, I think, the needs, if you will, of the board in terms of just understanding where the utilization of this project will be. I take it you're familiar with the utilization reports you've previously completed on there. So in that sense, it kind of gives us a head start. Aggie Lane's here from an organization that I hold dear. But I know in terms of accountability, that there will be some things that the public, in particular organizations like the Urban Jobs Task Force, will be particularly keen to. So just wanted to make sure that you were familiar with the utilization reports, of that reporting that may happen on a quarterly basis, some things that we'll be specifically looking for just in terms of those MWBE goals or whatever else is attached there. I just implore you to make sure that we're looking locally, we're searching locally, and to the highest extent possible that we are utilizing those minority and women-owned firms that are here locally in order to make this project the best success for everyone. I think it's a terrific project, but as the first under this new policy, it's also the litmus test for us And so we're going to set the bar in terms of what the public will generally expect now in Aggie. I don't want to face Aggie again in 3 months if we aren't in compliance with here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, so we understand that. We have a great contractor in Huber Brewer who's leading the construction charge. They understand the reporting requirements, and they prepare those, internally, and we will submit on whatever request of the chairperson, and we will work. One of the representatives from Huber Brewers in the back row, so they understand what you were looking for as well, so he'll take it back to his folks at the office.
Overachieving will be great. I have one more question, unless somebody else has a question. I don't want to jump ahead. My last question is, I'm sure you read the article in the paper yesterday. So
Brilliantly written by Rick Moriarty.
I would ask you to directly address the question of the need for benefits from this agency for this particular project.
So I actually didn't read the article. When you're involved in stuff, you know the true stories on everything. So I'm not saying it's a bad story, but I know the stuff there. So the need, as I brought up in the public hearing, we started this project a year and a half ago, and certain things in terms of price of materials, labor costs, financial costs have escalated, to a degree where a lot of projects that we're working on locally and nationally, developers have put on hold just till they come back to a ground where the equity investors and banks are willing to finance the project. Also, banks are looking for greater ratios of equity to what they're lending. So this project, as I said, they're out there and they're demoing, getting it pad ready in the hopes of the board approving the benefits here. That goes forward. The equity investors, the lender knows that they have the necessary resources to get this project completed. So, some things have righted themselves, but there's, overall the project is up significantly from when we started day one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions, comments?
Aggie's got questions.
Aggie.
I just want to make a comment about that compliance.
I actually did talk to Judy about it, being curious whether you were going to measure the compliance by either head count or work hours. And years ago, we were pushing that SIDA and OSIDA use LCP tracker because that's work hours. Judy gave me the impression that you were going to use head count, which is much easier. And I know VIP Structures used head count on the Price Right project. And it's got some flaws, head count. Anyway, I just want you not only to think really hard on what you use, and I guess the last thing is sort of what Ricky said. I've been wondering, how does an organization like the Urban Jobs Task Force of Syracuse, we're now a 501c3, how do we get to see the compliance results, the utilization results? Is it going to be on the website? Do we need to come here quarterly and know when it's going to be? But I guess, urge you to make sure that we can monitor that too, because we are the public face. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points, which we will address, hopefully in the next, as I said, the next couple of weeks. Any other comments or questions on the inducement resolution? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Steve. All in favor? Last call for comments. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the pilot resolution.
Yes, so in your, good morning again. In your packet is the resolution for the proposed pilot schedule. You will note it is a 15-year schedule, which complies with your uniform tax exemption policy. There is no deviation. And as Dirk mentioned a short time ago, this pilot incentive will only apply to the improvements made. The developer will continue to pay 100% of the real property taxes otherwise due on the parcel as of the day you enter into, or as of the next taxable status date, after you enter into your pilot agreement.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Move approval.
Move to approve by Dirk. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, Ken. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last item, final resolution for the project.
The final resolution is a resolution authorizing the agency to enter into all necessary lease transactional documents to confer the benefits that have been approved to the project.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Motion.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Second. Second, Ken. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you all very much. We look forward to working with you. Next item on the agenda is a motion to go into executive session. Before we do that, I would like to ask, assuming I have nothing further on the agenda, so when we come back, it'll just be to adjourn out of executive session. But does anyone have anything else that they would like discussed today before we go into executive session? If not, I just want to assure everybody that we will come back for only the purposes of adjourning. So plan your time. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss disposition and/or acquisition of property?
Motion.
Motion made by Ken, second by Ricky. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll be going into Sue's. a motion to adjourn the meeting of the board meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I beat you.
Motion made by Dirk, second Ricky. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a great rest of the month.
Hey, you have a nice